بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. At the beginning of my presentation, I would like to express my deep acknowledgement and sincere thanks to Dr. Abdulmalik Al Sheikh and the top management of King Saud University's Prince Sultan Institute for Environmental, Water and Desert Research for their kind invitation for me to deliver my keynote address at this important event. The title of my presentation is Advanced Governance Frameworks for Total Treatment and Reuse of Industrial Wastewater in Saudi Arabia, a case study. Before I proceed in delivering my presentation, I would like to clarify that this presentation deals with very important issue. We have been hearing during the past 3 decades or 4 decades, most of decision makers, water planners in Arab countries and also in other arid countries worldwide requesting or targeting their use of treated wastewater as a valuable water source to fill the gap between the growing demands and the limited water supplies from conventional resources. And during the past 3 decades, many countries in Arab region and also worldwide, specifically in arid zones where the conventional water resources are limited, they put great efforts and they spend a lot of financial resources trying to reuse the treated wastewater, domestic wastewater and industrial wastewater in addition to other non-conventional water resources. But many of these efforts have not met the planned targets according to the their national water strategies. And this presentation tries to give answers why those countries could not achieve their goals in their use of treated wastewater and why some few countries have managed to reach their planned targets in their use of a treated wastewater to fill the gap in water shortages for different uses. The contents of my presentation include the following. First, the importance of the use of treated wastewater in arid countries. Second, causes of failures in wastewater reuse schemes in some Arab and other arid countries. Third, adoption and implementation of governance frameworks utilizing integrated water resources management for total reuse of treated industrial wastewater in industrial cities in Saudi Arabia. Fourth, the gained benefits from the implementation of the adopted governance frameworks and total wastewater treatment and reuse. And fifth, I will explain the conclusions and recommendations at the end of my presentation. First of all, I would like to explain the importance of the reuse of treated wastewater in arid countries. I think in all Arab countries and almost most of arid countries worldwide, including Saudi Arabia, the gap between water demands and supplies has been widening, especially during the past 3 decades. And this has been due to rapid growth in population and also rapid growth in urbanization. And this has resulted in immense increase in water demands for domestic, agricultural, and industrial utilization. The conventional water resources in arid countries, as everyone knows, cannot or could not meet the growing demands. And so most of arid countries have been facing water shortages, water supply shortages. Consequently, the use of non-conventional water resources such as treated wastewater for industrial, non-potable, and irrigation purposes has become a major water resource alternative to achieve sustainable water security in accordance to United Nations Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. And most of Arab countries and also most of arid countries, they have put or considered their use of a treated wastewater, whether it's domestic wastewater or industrial wastewater, as a major part water supply source in their national water strategies and action plans, including Saudi Arabia. Now I would like to talk about the causes of failures in wastewater reuse schemes in some Arab and some other arid countries. As I said at the beginning of the presentation, in spite of hard efforts and large investment schemes by water agencies in many Arab and in many arid countries to maximize wastewater reuse to satisfy the growing water shortages, the achieved targets for the reuse remains limited and far below the expectation of national plans. And almost, during the past maybe 30 years, in every and each conference, workshop, or symposium, or in regional meetings on international level, regional level, national level, we hear many voices and concerns why we are not able to reuse the treated wastewater. And in many countries, the treated wastewater used to be treated and dumped in open wadis or in the sea. And this is really not visible, not practical, and doesn't meet the national goals and strategies of arid regions to satisfy the growing demands utilizing each single drop of water. The treated wastewater is an important resource, and we have to utilize sound schemes and tools to be able to utilize such valuable resource in order to achieve water security and to meet the sustainable development goals by 2030 in almost all arid countries, including Arab countries. This has been mainly the failure of many countries have been not able to utilize or reuse most of their treated wastewater, have been due to weak or absence of sound governance frameworks that are required for the implementation of the reuse schemes of treated wastewater, including deficiencies in policies, strategies, organizational structures, institutional and legal frameworks, and lack for enough financial and technical support. Now, I would like to give an example of few countries in Arab region and also in arid regions, how they managed to successfully utilize most of the produced treated industrial wastewater and domestic industrial wastewater And my example is Saudi Arabia. And I would like to explain how Saudi Arabia has managed to successfully adopt sound governance frameworks for total treatment and reuse of industrial wastewater, utilizing integrated water resources management tools in the kingdom. As, as many of us knows, during the past decade, Saudi Arabia has been among few countries that succeeded in adoption and implementation of full-scale reuse of treated industrial wastewater in all industrial cities on national level, with participation of private sector through public-private partnership schemes. And the magic for that success has been attributed to the adoption and implementation of sound governance frameworks utilizing integrated water resource management tools, which have been customized to suit the local conditions of the kingdom. There are three pillars for the governance frameworks which helped in successful reuse of treated industrial wastewater in industrial cities in Saudi Arabia. The first pillar is creation of enabling environment to be able to reuse the treated industrial wastewater. Second pillar, creation of industrial wastewater reuse market. And third pillar is development of sound management instruments. Now I will clarify, the elements of each pillar of the adopted governance frameworks. The first pillar, creation of enabling environment, included development of national water strategy to achieve Saudi Arabia's 2030 vision and United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, emphasizing the reuse of treated wastewater utilizing public-private partnership schemes. So this is the first major step. Second element is the government has secured strong political support for the developed national water strategy by Higher Economic Council, and a royal decree was issued in 2002 for considering public-private partnership in 6 sectors, and water sector was one among them. The third element has been development and adoption of sound legal frameworks and enforcement, control over quality of collected wastewater treatment and distribution, identification of investment structure. So this is the enabling environment to achieve successful reuse of industrial wastewater. The second pillar is creation of industrial wastewater reuse market. To create a market, you need to do the following. You have to establish, a responsible organization for the wastewater reuse. And in Saudi Arabia, we managed to, the government has established our establishment of Saudi Authority for Industrial Cities and Technology Zones, Mudun, which has been responsible for total management of the industrial cities in the kingdom and the creation of industrial cities with all required infrastructures under the supervision of Mudun. Second issue, development of sound wastewater collection, treatment, and reuse facilities among the available infrastructure in the industrial cities. And the third element was development of water regulator and enforcement agency. This is very important. Water regulator plays the role to judge, the issues or the rising issues between the stakeholder or the wastewater reuse stakeholders, and in this case, the industrial plants and the wastewater treatment operators and wastewater and water reuse operators, and who are responsible for the treatment of waste, for the collection of wastewater, treatment of wastewater, and distribution of wastewater companies in partnership with Mudun. So the regulator role here is to, to regulate the relationship between the stakeholders and the water operators, wastewater treatment and reuse operators facilities, and also is responsible to regulate the water tariff and to resolve any conflict between different stakeholders and the wastewater reuse treatment operators. The other element has been the use of advanced and effective approaches in wastewater reuse, such as a closed water cycle. And in fact, Mudun has been very successful by adopting this approach. So there is no single drop of water misused or not reused. So you have the water, fresh water coming to the factory or the industrial plants, then it is collected, the wastewater is collected, then treated, then it goes back in the loop to be treated and distributed again. So they close the loop, and this is the most advanced approach in wastewater treatment and reuse. And it has been, running smoothly for more than 10 years in all industrial plants in the kingdom. The third pillar has been the development of sound management instruments. To achieve successful wastewater reuse, we have to develop and adopt, sound management instruments, which includes first, development of bankable BOT projects for attracting skilled and qualified private sector participation through public-private partnership and for mobilization of additional financing. And everyone knows the private sector, he will not participate unless he is sure that whatever projects is going to be engaged, that projects should be bankable. Second thing, development and execution of transparent RFPs for wastewater treatment and reuse, bidding processes, transparent bidding processes, and contracting to gain private sector confidence. And this is extremely important. We have to have a transparency in all processes, starting from the issuing the RFPs, qualification, bidding, contracting, until the end of the whole process to select, the private sector company for water operation and maintenance through BOT contracts. The third element of these management instruments is development of fair regulated water tariff, which reflects the cost and visible margin for profit. And normally this water tariffs is reviewed by the regulator, and it is being reviewed every few years to make sure that whatever the industrial plants are paying is fair and reflects the actual cost to achieve sustainable services for the wastewater collection, treatment, and reuse. And the last two elements, setting sound KPIs for effective monitoring of the implementation of BOT contracts, and this is extremely important. And there are set of KPIs which have been reviewed, assessed, to meet different targets in the operation and maintenance and reuse, to make sure that all BOT contracts are meeting the objectives and the target of wastewater treatment and reuse. And the last element is adoption of sound customer services for ensuring good quality of the provided services for the industrial plants. And this is really extremely important tool to gain the confidence of the hundreds of industrial plants in industrial cities, and to make sure they are satisfied about the provided services. Examples of the gain benefits from full treatment and reuse of industrial wastewater in industrial cities in Saudi Arabia, as I mentioned, adoption, development, and adoption of sound governance frameworks, utilizing integrated water resource management tools customized to suit the local conditions, has resulted in full treatment and reuse of all produced industrial wastewater in industrial cities. And I give you an example about the gained benefits. The total treatment and reuse of all produced industrial wastewater of hundreds of industrial plants at first and second industrial cities of Dammam and Al-Hassa have resulted in savings of about 28.72 million cubic meter per year of desalinated and transported seawater, and also groundwater, because if we don't use that reuse wastewater, treated wastewater, groundwater will be pumped and the aquifers will be exhausted. Further, saving electricity consumption in the two industrial cities by about 855,000 megawatt hour per year, which is equivalent of saving 1.6 million barrels of oil per year, worth about $80 million at oil price of $50 a barrel. At the end, I would like to summarize the conclusions and recommendation for this successful experience of Saudi Arabia. The successful experience of the kingdom in full treatment and reuse of all produced industrial wastewater in industrial cities is mainly attributed to a magic, I call it magic procedure, which is the adoption and implementation of sound governance frameworks utilizing integrated water resources management tools. If you want to be successful in reusing the treated wastewater, you have to adopt sound governance frameworks. Otherwise, I think any government, whatever they spend, whatever they put efforts, they will not be able to be successful in reusing the treated wastewater, and millions of cubic meter of treated wastewater will be spoiled and will be exhausted without reuse. The above accomplishments have helped the kingdom in savings of large volumes of groundwater, desalinated and transported seawater. These have contributed to achieving sustainable water and energy security in accordance to Saudi Vision 2030 and to meet the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. I believe strongly that the gained Saudi experience is a good model for Arab and many other Arid countries for achieving water and energy security in accordance with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. I think, the steps are clear, and here the path to be able to reuse, to treat and reuse. They produce domestic and industrial wastewater will be by developing and adopting sound governance frameworks customized, to suit the local conditions of each country, utilizing integrated water resources management tools. By this, I would like to thank you for your kind listening, and I wish you all the best. Thank you again.